Welcome back to the Pastor Cave. It's Monday, July the 6th, and we're getting back to Bible time. This is a little commentary that goes along with the Believers Fellowship Daily Bible Reading, and we are in the book of Samuel. Specifically, we're in 1 Samuel chapters 18 and 19. And I've told you that 1 Samuel, the content kind of revolves around the three main characters, Samuel, Saul, and David. Actually, in these chapters, you see all three of them. Samuel's kind of fading out of the picture, but Saul is still very much in the picture, and David is very much in the picture, and those both of them are going to be for quite some time to come throughout our study until it's basically then it is David that is center stage. And in these chapters today, we learn some important things about humility and pride. We learn some important things about serving the Lord and the Lord being with those who are serving him. Chapter 18 starts off with David and Jonathan after David slew Goliath. You remember that from our Friday lesson. Jonathan and David became great friends, and that's because they were so like-minded, so like-hearted. We saw Jonathan a few chapters back in his bold attack on the Philistines, and now David's bold attack on Goliath. Great victories that they won. They were like-minded in that they had high views of God and they were active for God, as opposed to Saul, who does a lot of just sitting around. And so David and Jonathan become close friends. They make a covenant with each other. It's encouraging to see the fellowship, the encouragement that they receive from one another in these chapters. That's the best kind of like-minded fellowship, when you have two people who are running as fast as they can after the Lord and they link up together in serving him together. That's what you see in David and Jonathan. You also see in these chapters, you see the Lord dealing with Saul because David really becomes the hero of the people, and they start singing this song, about Saul has slain his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. And so Saul is filled with envy, he's filled with fear, and he's, quite frankly, out to get David and will be for a long time. So we see the Lord, though, dealing with Saul throughout these chapters, and we see him working, too, to protect David through all of this. David is the anointed one. David is the one that's going to succeed Saul as king, and even Jonathan knows that. Jonathan would have been normally the successor to Saul, but Jonathan recognizes, no, David is God's man. And so you see the difference there between the humility of Jonathan and the pride of Saul. But the Lord is actively working to protect David. You see him doing that through Jonathan and the ways that Jonathan works to protect David. You see it through Saul's bad aim, because one time he wanted to throw a spear at David and he missed him. Maybe that was Saul's bad aims. Maybe that was the quick moves of David. But the Lord is protecting David there, because Saul really does want to kill him. We also see that David marries one of Saul's daughters. So David is the son-in-law of Saul. That can be kind of awkward. But the daughter's name is Michal, and we see a time where Michal protects David because she knows Saul has sent men to get David. She lets him down through a window, and then she makes the bed look like David's in there to throw the men off. So she's working to protect David as well. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Here's a daughter and a son in Jonathan of Saul, who are both working to protect David against their dad. We also see, interestingly, at the end of chapter 19, we see the Spirit working to protect David, because Saul finds out where David is. He's with Samuel. That's where Samuel comes into this picture. He's with Samuel, and Saul sends some people out to get him, but the Spirit comes on them, and they join in with Samuel and the other prophets. And so finally Saul goes, and the same thing happens to him, and he winds up on his face being humbled by God. So you see Jonathan working to protect David. You see God providentially protecting David in the spear incident. You see Michal protecting David, and you see the Spirit of God working to protect David. So the Lord here, we see him at work accomplishing his purposes. Even though Saul is out to get David, the Lord is providentially working to protect David. And that's a great source of confidence for you and me, to know that the Lord is providentially at work protecting his people who are accomplishing his purposes. And that leads me to the main thing that I want to bring out here today. You'll notice that David was successful in his missions, working under Saul, because we're told that the Lord was with David. The Lord was with David. You see that 3 different times. You see it in chapter 18, verse 12. It says the Lord was with him, was with David. And it says in verse 14, David had success in all his undertakings, for the Lord was with him. And then in verse 28, again, even Saul recognizes that the Lord is with David. The Lord is with him. Well, why is David being so successful in accomplishing the purposes that God has for him? Because the Lord is with him. That's a big thing for you and me to take note of, because as a Christian, I have a mission. I have a mission to make disciples. That's the Great Commission given to us by the Lord himself. And he just doesn't give us the commission and say, okay, go off and do it. But the Lord is with us. He says in Matthew 28:20, lo, I am with you even to the end of the age. He's always with us. So that just gives us great confidence. If you line yourself up with God's purposes and you devote yourself to the mission that God has given to us, you can be assured that he will be with you. And you will enjoy success and see fruit as well, because the Lord is with us. And so as we look at these chapters and we see the Lord working here in the life of David, we see the Lord accomplishing his purposes, and we see the Lord actively involved in what's going on. That gives great confidence to you and me. And we're going to see more and more of this as we continue looking at the life of David. And we're going to learn some very valuable lessons, especially that will help us in these particular days that we live in. So welcome to another week of Bible time. I'm looking forward to the things that we're going to be looking at together this week. So we'll see you tomorrow for more Bible time.